And welcome back, fourth and long fans. It's your footy correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFLW round review. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to be very honest. I'm super looking forward to my guest today, a legend in women's footy, Mitch, Coach Kiwi Roper. Coach, how are you doing now that we've finally got our technical difficulties out of the way?
You love a little challenge in the morning. I'm doing very well, thank you, in sunny Melbourne, which is very rare for most parts of Australia right now. It's very wet
Yeah,
in other states.
yeah, our thoughts are going out to the people of northern New South Wales and southern Queensland with all of the flooding there. Absolutely just heartbreaking to see all the flooding that's going on there. Hope everybody is safe. It's sad to see. Unfortunately, it is claimed some footy that the summer series between GWS and Sydney, the women's comp that's up there with those girls, unfortunately has been canceled for at least this round, which is kind of a big loss for me personally because I was looking forward to seeing some of the action from that. But let's not focus on the negative. Let's focus on the positive. And an absolutely ripping round of footy in round 8. As we discussed in the last podcast, we kind of covered the first game of GWS and St. Kilda. So we will jump to the first game. And boy, did we have a dandy out in the West as Frio fall just a little bit short to the Adelaide Crows 25-16, an absolutely ripping game. And the crazy part is, coach, we had some of the bigger stars not in this, with Aaron Phillips and Kiera Bowers both not playing in this game.
Yeah, and I think this really split the tipsters this match. Anyone from that side of the country would have always backed Freo in. But when you look at Adelaide's lineup without Aaron Phillips and just the whole weight of ability and the way she gets her team lifted and everything, you think, well, how can they beat such a quality Freo side? And having Bowers drop out, I think it was just an injury at training during the week because she has finished her match suspension, her 2-match suspension. So, a real challenge for Freo to then get up so quickly without such a star player who was due back in. And then Crows have proven that without Chelsea Randall, without Aaron Phillips, they've still got stars and they've got players all over the park with Button, with Mills, just absolutely the small players that probably don't hear us mention a lot, lifting and getting over the line. And and I think Sarah Allen has been an absolute rock down the back for Adelaide for the last couple of years, really. And just growing into that role. She originally was a ruck, and then when they drafted her sister, she got bumped out of the ruck role because her sister's a little bit taller, and moved to fullback. And she's just growing into that role. She just is so dominant, and she gets up the ground as a pretty high fullback at times. But just cuts off so much for Adelaide. So outstanding result. And they just look more and more hungrier to get their third premiership, really.
Yeah, a completely great game by the Crows. Just they have so many stars and so many underrated players that you kind of go, you could just name off half their list just thinking about all the players that had really good games. I mean, Ed Hatchard plays well, Ebony Marinoff plays well. Their forwards just absolutely were tackling machines, which is normally Fremantle's game. Fremantle is the tackling team of the competition, them and Gold Coast. So it was a great game. Definitely you could tell by mid fourth quarter the heat was kind of getting to him, which we'll have a discussion a little bit later on some of the conditions and things just in a little bit. But just a great performance, first class by the Crows, definitely keeping themselves in flag contendership. But I'm not going to knock out Frio in the flag contenders because once Kiera Bowers comes back, that just makes that midfield that much more dangerous. So this potentially you could notch up as maybe potentially a grand final preview. We'll have to see. It'll be quite interesting going into the finals. All right. So as we were talking, the Cats, to be completely honest, the Cats score line over the Richmond Tigers was probably the biggest surprise for me. What were your thoughts on this one, Coach?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. It was a hard game to tip anyway. And for exactly those reasons you mentioned, Geelong have played some really good football, but struggled to, get some major scores. And, they've shown absolute glimpses that that's part of their game. They're getting better at this season. So I thought it was going to be a close game. And I tipped Richmond purely because they were at home. And I thought, they play some really nice football at Punt Road Oval. And I backed them in. They've got some quality players. And I thought, the Smalls that night, it was a hot night, and they were probably a little bit fresher coming into the game. And Geelong just competed, absolutely competed. And they got a couple of coast-to-coast goals and really just set the game up for themselves. And I think after that, Richmond just were trying to protect their end zone pretty much. So just try to reduce what Geelong were going to score rather than pressure down the other end and get their own scores. So yeah, I think their forwards probably didn't have as much of an impact as we would have thought they would have had that night. And credit to Geelong, they played all over the place. And they've got some exciting young new players like Rachel Carnes or Kearns, however you want to say her name, the young Irish girl. She is just phenomenal for someone who's come from Gaelic football. Is generally non-contact, but the physicality that she gives at the contest is just incredible. And who doesn't like watching around the corner kick from any of the Irish women that are playing over here? So she's exciting to see. And you just know when you send the ball long, Phoebe McWilliams, it just sticks to her hands like Velcro. She's just amazing in the air. So they've got some good players stepping up, and it's really good to see how Nina Morrison is just fulfilling the potential that everyone knew she was going to have before she did her ACL injury. So, exciting times ahead for Geelong. Absolutely. I don't think they'll make playoffs this season, but they'll definitely finish this year and be pretty happy with how they went.
Yeah, definitely. I'll use the Aussie line. Rachel Kearns is definitely a tough nut. I absolutely love watching her play. She is a fantastic at the footy. Absolutely love watching her play. There's several girls throughout the competition that I love watching because they go hard into the contest. They sometimes go a little too hard, but it's fun to watch because they're showing that they're after the footy, and I absolutely love that. We jump down now to a game that you look at the score line, and it's hard not to argue that with this North Melbourne game, if North could actually kick straight, this might have been a tiny bit of a different game. So Melbourne get the 10-point win, but Coach, I mean, is this more saying of North Melbourne's inaccuracy or Melbourne's pretty darn good defense for a good portion of this game?
Yeah, I think, a bit of both, actually. North have got some really good quality goal kickers, but when they came to getting shots on goal, they were under a lot of pressure in this match. And the D's are just becoming, pretty, they're almost making their home field invincible. I think they've been winning I think it's something like 13 games on the trot right now is what they're doing. So, and it's a nightmare field. It is an absolute nightmare field, even for them. And I've seen them lose games at that field because there is always a wind. And it generally runs from end to end. So you generally have a score quarter and a non-scoring quarter. But credit to these teams, they did score from both ends of the field. And, and I think D's, the coach is clearly worried about how North came into this game and how they, started off, because Daisy spent this season in the forward line, most of last year in the forward line, and then next minute we see her thrown to the back line. So he clearly saw the threat and could see that that's somewhere where he's got to put some of his experience and and that sort of probably perhaps turn things. Daisy's such a quality player, but also very organized and doesn't panic or anything, so she would be able to hold the calm around the field and just keep letting the Demon defenders apply that pressure. And unfortunate for North, because they've improved things the last few games and really got some good scores on the board, but they're just hanging on to that top six, really.
Yeah, I think North's one of those teams that a lot of people kind of jumped off of after the first couple of years where they were star-studded and everybody was like, this was a team that was created to win a flag. And they've just kind of each season have kind of people have kind of jumped off the proverbial North bandwagon. And I've been one of those. I said this year, I said, North's going to nip a few teams. North's going to be a team I think is going to surprise. And I've been pleasantly surprised with how well they've played this season on that tip, just kind of going off a hunch. But the D's just incredible. And when you have Daisy Pierce, it's hard not to argue. You have a coach on the field that you can put her anywhere on the field and she's going to make an impact. And it's hard not to argue. And in fact, I have to throw this in. The fact that Geelong and the AFL are looking at making her a coach says a lot about her footy brain. And I hope someday she finds a way to coach in the men's or in the women's, because she's an incredible mind. I love listening to Daisy Pierce. So my hat tipped to Miss Daisy Pierce with her incredible footy mind. I jump from there to a game that another one that if you look at the score line, it's a little misleading. I hate saying this, Coach, but is this next game between the Saints and the Suns, where the Saints get their first win of the season? They get the Chuckies. They finally get their 4 points. But am I wrong at saying I feel more like Gold Coast lost this game than St. Kilda won it?
Yes, exactly that. And, let the Saints women go and celebrate their 4 points, because, it's been an absolute tough season for them. And but it really just looked to me like the Suns lost that game. And not just the 2 shots at the end of the last quarter from Sarah Perkins, but just throughout the game there were just more chances. They dominated a little bit more. Their control of the football was just a little bit cleaner. But they just, and they've been really strong in that last quarter, and absolutely come home nailing goals and come from behind victories just in that last quarter. And so our money, all the money, everyone was saying our Suns will do it, this is St. Kilda. And St. Kilda lost, was it only 4 days prior, I think, lost exactly or very similar. It was that kick after the siren rather than before the siren. But it's really, you kind of looked at it and you went, well, you feel for the St. Kilda girls. Here they are, they're going to lose 2 in 4 days by a kick right at the end of the game. And for Perko, she's a brilliant goal kicker. And generally that the first one she missed, you would have just said, this is in for all money. Sarah Perkins, fantastic technique, absolute power. And when she missed that and then got the next one, you sort of looked at her lining up going, well, she knows she just missed one. She's not going to do the same thing. And unfortunately she did and just got the point. So it was probably, quite uncharacteristic for Perko. But I felt that the Suns really sort of gave the 4 points to St. Kilda. Nice of them.
being nice there. Unfortunately, I think that may cost the Suns any chance of making the finals. But this Suns team has been just incredible to watch. And for Perko, I look at it this is her whole season. She has just been an incredibly stabilizing character for that forward line of Gold Coast, because you've got young Tara Bohanna who's learning from a really solid player, and she's shown that influence that Perko's had. So as much as this loss stings, I think the Suns have such a bright future. There's so many good things that you can say off the Suns, that they're going to drop the occasional one because they are such a young side. So you can't get on them too much for dropping this one. And like I said, hats off to Nick Del Santo finally getting his first win. Again, whether earned or not, that's up for debate. But the Saints players, you got to give it to them. They're off the schneid. They won a game. They don't have to worry about not winning any games this season. So good on them. We jump to the next one, to Victoria Park. And I know this one's got a little bit of a connection for you, Coach, with Collingwood getting a big 25-point win over the Doggies. But unfortunately, we lose a great superstar in this game. It's saddened a little bit with Britt Benici going down with an ACL tear.
Yeah, it is. It was a great win for Collingwood, and they really needed to win and just show that the quality football that they've been able to play, or hang on, the quality of football they are able to play, but we haven't seen for a couple of weeks. So it's good to see that again. And, you know, Brett really stood up when they needed a captain, when Steph Chiocci got injured with her Achilles and Bree Davies did her ACL in round one. Britt Bonici stood up. And, you know, her game went to another level. Her leadership went to another level amongst the team. And, you know, and this is actually the first week she didn't have to be captain because Choch was back in. And then, yeah, so it has been confirmed as an ACL, and really unfortunate. And it's going to probably be quite a challenge. They've got good players, but I think without Brett and without Bree, it's going to make it quite tough to be as competitive against the likes of Adelaide and Brisbane and even Freo and Melbourne, if you throw all four in there. So tough way to end the season for Collingwood, but absolute, you know, grand victory for them. And the other one out of the game was Alicia Newman, who got concussed early on. So so she will probably miss this weekend, well, out of concussion protocols, but yeah, she wasn't too well after the game either. So tough game on the injury front, but fantastic for the way they went about the score. And you know, and it's always nice for Collingwood fans to get a win down at that park that has so much history down there.
Yeah, and then Sabrina Frederick coming back after being dropped, going to the VFLW, playing really well, and then coming up in the AFLW and keeping that momentum. So I'm hoping Collingwood can somehow at least make it, if they make it the finals, be competitive. But I agree with you. Unfortunately, they're missing some absolutely massive cogs in their midfield, and I think it's just going to be a little too much to ask. And the Doggies, I feel horrible for them because they've had to play so many games in such a short amount of time. So their legs, you can definitely tell they're just running on fumes, and they played so hard in a tough game. So I feel bad for the Dogs, but they've got a bright future too, with so many young talented stars on that list. Let's jump out to the West and get over it was probably the most lopsided, is the most lopsided game of the entire round. And I'll ask you this as a coach, and I've heard a few different comments. Are we more disappointed that Brisbane didn't get the ton, or are we more disappointed that the West Coast Eagles really just did not put up much of a fight in this game?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's you know, West Coast have just really sort of struggled to compete with the big teams. You know, they go in hard at the contest, and there are times where they get the ball and they move it so cleanly, but they just struggle to maintain that for the whole of the quarter and then for the 4 quarters. And in that moment of just a relapse in concentration or whatever it may be, the other teams are coming and getting them. And a team like Brisbane, you know, they just did that constantly throughout the game. And you know, and they've got, you know, they started the season on a loss, so they're here to really push hard for that scoreline to raise the percentages so they can get up to make the playoffs. So you know, you probably came against a pretty ferocious Brisbane team, and there was some rain in that game too, which the scoreline doesn't show that it was a wet weather match, but I think Brisbane pure fans would have wished they got the 3 figures, but I think for women's footy, we don't really want one team to lose by such a massive margin either.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like I unfortunately, over here at the States, I have the Watch AFL app, and it got to about 40 points. And I unfortunately had to admit, I started fast forwarding through the game because I didn't want to watch such, and I knew it was going to get ugly when it had gotten such a big margin so early. I can't watch this. Like, I felt horrible, but I did. I fast forwarded to the end, and I got to the point where they had 98 with about a minute left. And I was like, do I want to watch them potentially put up 100 or not? And I was like, nope. So fast forward to the end, and thankfully they didn't. But again, Brisbane, just a class side. They're going to be tough in the finals, especially if they can get all those young talent and such consistent talent on this team going, for sure. They'll definitely be a headache for any of the teams they match up with in the finals. We jump to the last one in a game that, honestly, I'm a little surprised by this. Maybe it's just because Carlton has been so inconsistent this year. They just have not impressed me at all. With the talent that they have on this list, I have just been baffled by how them not being able to play consistent footy. And they go up to New South Wales and knock off the GWS Giants 51-33. I don't know, which team should I be more disappointed in? This Carlton team showing that they should be so good, or a GWS team that, as you guys talk about on the coat hanger, has just not been what we thought they would potentially be this year.
Yeah, and exactly that. I kind of looked at GWS at the beginning of the season and thought they've recruited really well. They brought in Chloe Dalton. She's an absolute speed runner and a tackler. She's from a rugby background. They brought in Katie Loynes, who is a solid body through the midfield, loads of experience in the game. Tanya Hetherington was back and looking really sharp and fit. You kind of just, they recruited the best out of the Swans Academy, and it took a couple of games before she got on the field, but then she did and started kicking goal a game. Is where she was at, and you just sort of thought, well, here we are. We've got a chance for a top 6 team here. It's Alan's there. He's been there a few years. He's got experience. He knows the game well, and they just seem to all get around each other and be stronger and tighter unit after what happened in the last couple of seasons. So you kind of had real hope that here we were, and then they've just really not got the results, and some of the football has been just really disappointing, I guess. And and I know the players are trying, and they did actually look very tired in the second half of that game. And whether it was because they played a few days earlier, if the heat was getting to them, if the stresses of these results not going their way, because that also zaps your energy when you're not getting wins. That takes quite a toll as well. And probably that last gasp win against St Kilda took more out of them than they perhaps were expecting. Even though they got the 4 points, it's very draining to get to that point behind on the scoreboard, even though you then win the 4 points. So yeah, it's you can see patches similar to West Coast, I guess, patches that they've got quality ball users, and it was good to see some of the players linking up and stuff. It's just hard. It's hard because we want them to succeed. Obviously I'm from New South Wales, so I want anything from up that way to succeed. Can't wait for the Swans to come in and maybe give us more hope. But this was the Giants' year, and we really wanted them to stand tall. And against Carlton, you just sort of thought, well, Giants are at home. Carlton have had a really up and down season and inconsistent. His chance for Giants, off the back of that last gasp win, get out there and take the 4 points. And for some reason, and they've done this in other years, there's the famous Thunder and Lightning match at Des Moines Oval, where you might have thought they had a chance that week and played some really good football at the beginning of that game, and then Carlton came back and took the scores and won the points. And it's just I think Carlton, you don't know which team you're going to get each week. It's almost, I don't know, they've got split personality down at Carlton, and for Giants, you just have that hope, and they're just not, I guess, not living up to what we think they can play. And maybe are our expectations too high, or something else going on that we don't know down there.
Yeah, no, I just don't know. I just don't. Both these teams this year, I've stated on several podcasts, I don't know how to categorize these teams, because they're just in this no man's land. Because I look at Carlton's list and so many really talented, great AFLW players, and they just have not been consistent in their results and in their performances. I mean, Mimi Hill coming back from her ACL has been lights out, and I got to give it to her. So great. Darcy Vesio, tips off to you. You get the first ever AFLW women's player to hit 50 goals. That is so great for them. I'm so happy that they were able to get that done, and get that off the table. No more talk about the first person to 50. It's over. That's great. But I don't know. I really, it'll be interesting off seasons for both of these clubs, because I don't know which way they go for either of these teams. Just do you make a coaching change? Do you move the list around more? Not that Carlton hasn't done that plenty of times over the last few seasons. So we'll really have to see. That's going to do it for round 8, an incredible round of footy. Now, before we go into tips, I chatted with you, Coach, before we turned the mics on, in because I'm seeing more and more of this being discussed, and that is when the season for the AFLW really should be played. And I keep hearing so many different ones. I just saw something today on one of my social medias that they asked Darcy Bessio, and they came out saying that they agree that they should play it in the winter. And as I told Emma in a few episodes before, I said I understand why the ladies want it in winter. I really do. But for me, I've got a few reservations on that. So before I kind of go into my reservations, what is your kind of thoughts on when you think the ideal time for the AFLW should be?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question, isn't it? Because there are so many scenarios, yeah, as you said, getting passed around, and and it's sort of, do you look at it from a wellness perspective, or
Mhm,
do you look at it from a commercial perspective?
mhm,
So obviously for the players, the heat is hard and draining, and so for them, they're signed up for football as a winter coach. Is it better to play through winter where it is cooler? Um, Having said that, in some states, not so much Victoria, New South Wales particularly, grounds close when tomorrow it's going to rain. So, can that affect then, some of the fields that will become available, because this competition is not played at the big stadiums. It's often played at local,
mhm,
the bigger parks in the local suburbs. So that could be a factor into it. But then commercially, you got to look and you go, if we play in winter already, some of the fans will go back to AFL. Some of them are involved in their own sports. So, most fans that come to the game are either playing or administrators or supporters of their local community team. So they're going to want to be at those games supporting their local club, or
mhm.
getting, it's just, drains the time that you have. Kids playing Auskicks, so there's families and parents that won't be able to take them off to the AFLW game. So commercially, I think it's going to be really difficult to justify AFLW running in winter aligned with
Mhm.
AFL. So perhaps, maybe look at it, and a few of them have said, why don't we overlap the end of the men's season? So when it goes down to the
Mhm.
playoffs, there's 8 teams left. That would still give supporters of the other 8 clubs games to watch for their club. So,
Mhm.
so it has some benefit in that. And I guess, it's more about what fields are we then going to use. Is, in Victoria you've got Collingwood's home field, Bulldogs home field, North's home field, um, Richmond's home field,
Swinburne,
Geelong's home field. They're their own field, so they don't have to share with cricket.
yeah. Mhm.
But then if we go to down where Adelaide play most of their games, is often a cricket oval. In Sydney, where Giants play, and potentially where the Swans will play, often cricket fields. And in Brisbane, much the same. If Gold Coast stay at Metricon, they might get away with it depending if, when cricket wants to use that oval. But so it's just those kind of factors, I think, and the challenges is that outside of Victoria, other states have other challenges than perhaps what Victorians just struggle with the heat.
Yeah.
It's which is what keeps coming up as the problem. Let's change it.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. In my discussions that I've had with, and here's how I look at it is, my biggest question, and the reason that I don't think, and I agree with you, I don't think the winter competition is going to be viable, because honestly, I look at it like this. One of the biggest complaints I hear from so many AFLW supporters is there's not enough coverage. There's not enough shows. There's not enough articles, none of that. And my biggest thing for that is if you think there's not enough now, when when there's no men's season, nothing going on, how do you think you're going to get any more when the men are going on? Because all of those articles are going to go to the men, not the women. Then I look at it is when are you going to get these games in that they're not going to be affected by a men's game, unless you have during the day, which I don't think really solves the problem. And then I've heard this constantly. Well, it'd be great if it's a curtain raiser. Honestly, I've heard a lot of fans go, I'm not going to sit around for 7 hours of footy to watch a women's game and a men's game. So I see too many things that I think will be negative for the product if they try to play it in winter. I love the idea of them starting up right as soon as the men's final starts. I think that's great because everybody's still paying attention to footy. A lot of people are still there, and you don't have the footy withdrawal that I keep hearing people talk about after the men's season is over with, because hey, now you've got women's games to watch. The weather is much nicer. You don't have to worry about it being as hot. The ground should still be pretty much prepped for footy, so you don't have to worry about cricket. So a lot of the issues are then alleviated. uh, the biggest question here is that, can we get the women professional? That is the biggest thing there, is can they get professional? And really, really interesting situation here. I'm just going to keep talking, ladies and gentlemen, because coach hopped out again. So it looks like she's now on in two different places. So this should be quite interesting. So hi coach, how are you? So I've been able to just keep talking. I've been able to just keep talking. So thankfully I'm able to do that. I have just enough that. So I really, really see a lot of different challenges that I think if the AFLW tries to go in winter, I think it's just not going to work out the way I think they want it. I want the product to grow. I want these ladies to become professional. I just worry if you go to winter, it's going to be the little red-headed stepchild. And I hate saying it that way. That's the way I think the AFLW will be perceived. Again, I understand the girls' arguments. I really, really do. But I look at it like this: is if you want this product to grow and to become professional, and I mean that professional, full on professional, not this semi, you get paid, but you still have to go to work. For these ladies to be paid full time, be training full time, be able to play footy all the time, I really think you cannot play it at the same time as the men's. It's just not going to grow the way you need it. Yes, you're seeing great growth in youth footy around the country. That's fantastic, but it's going to get stifled if you try to play it at the same time as the men. And I don't want that to happen. And I support the men's competition as much as I do the women's, but I just feel that the women's competition will not grow any more than it already is if they're playing at the same time as the men. So let's not talk about this again. It's a topic for that we can talk about all off season, because we just don't know. And again, I love the article by Libby Birch. I understand all of her arguments, and I understand those. I just kind of feel it's you're looking at it through a very small lens. I think you kind of have to look at it on a 3D dimensional type of view on this, because this isn't just something we need to progress now. We need it viable in 20 years and 30 years and 40 years. So we'll jump from that to what I think is quite an interesting round of footy. I cannot wait for that. I like to do tipping at the end of my episode. I hope you don't mind, coach. So we'll jump right into it. Friday night footy. A little tasty matchup here. St. Kilda coming off their first win against the pesky Geelong Cats down in RSEA Park. The Saints get to play on their home ground for the first time this season. Who do you like in this matchup?
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I think, I think Geelong proved last week they can play football and score. And I'd probably fancy their chances. I would go Geelong here. I have been down to RCA this week, and the grass is looking superb. It
Awesome.
is there's it's fresh. It's been freshly painted. The grandstand is almost complete. So for Saints fans, I think the first time they played down there in the AFLW was a lockout. So go back, get around the team, and they're coming off a win. And certainly they're going to want to finish the season on a high as well, and back at home. So on their comfortable surroundings. I think they'll play well, but I think Geelong are going to have the edge, and I'm going to go Geelong by 12.
All right.
Do I give margins?
If you want to,
Is that
I
getting
don't
too
normally. I just go with I just go with the winner. It's less it's far less complicated. But I'm with you there. I think the Cats, they I like their midfield. I like everything that they do there. They've been showing progression each and every week. Been playing really really good. You got a stout defender in Meg McDonald, who I think will be just fine in the back. It'll be quite interesting to see who she goes to in that, but I'm going to go with the Cats on this one as well. We jump up back up to Giant Stadium. I like seeing some of these women's games in some of the bigger venues. I love this. Giant Stadium hosts the Giants and the Tigers. So a couple of teams that have not been playing the greatest of footy. I'm going to tip the Tigers on this one. I don't like the Giants mojo right now. I like Mon Conti in the middle. Ellie McKenzie is fantastic. Brendan up front is she's so difficult to stop. I just don't know if Pippa Randall and GWS can stop her. I like the Tigers in this one.
Yeah, it's good to see them play at Giant Stadium. I actually wish they would play all their games there. It's a lovely field. It's been purposely extended. It was much more of a round field before the Giants moved in. So I wish they'd just let the women play more often there. But look, I think the thing with Pepper Randall is she's got an ability to get into your head. Mm-hmm. And I think she has really been able to, Katie Brennan is tough, but I think Pepper is just one that just really niggles and niggles and niggles. And that'll be just a battle to watch on its own. Like, who's going to get the edge between those two? And I'm sure Giants will do a bit of homework about Monconti last week. Probably wasn't as effective as she has been. So I'm sure the Giants will do a bit of homework around what did Geelong do? How did they stop her? How did they, keep her out of the game sort of as much around that? But look, I think it's going to be a close one. Perhaps Tigers, but I'm going to tip this one with my heart, and I'm going to go, come on, Giants, get the 4 points and get a win on the board for your last home game.
That'd be great. It's going to be a good game no matter what. I'm looking forward to this one. And we jump out to probably what I would consider, hard to say, not the premier game of this particular round, a game I'm really, really looking forward to. The first of two on Optus Stadium. I'm so looking forward to this. Freo Dockers, Melbourne Demons. Who do you like in this one, Coach?
Look, some may not like me for this, but I'm not going to tip Freo. I'm not a fan of purple anyway. They've got strong players. I think Demons have just got enough star power. I don't know. They're not even stars. Enough quality players all over that field to nullify the absolute talent in the Freo team. So yeah, I'm gonna go D's on this one. They've got a terrible song, but better colours. Hey, go the D's.
I love that. I'm going with the D's more just because I think Taylor Harris is that wild card. She's just been absolutely playing so well. And when you've got Daisy Pierce on your team, she can go back, she can go forward, she can do anything that you want. Like I said, coach on the field. I just like the D's mojo a little bit more. I don't know if Kiara Bowers is playing, and you can definitely tell when Kiara Bowers is not playing, this Freo team is not the same. There's just something missing in that Fremantle midfield when that happens. So I'm going to go D's here. The second game of Optus Stadium is an interesting one as the West Coast Eagles host the Duggies. I like the Duggies in this one. I know the travel isn't going to be easy. This is that perfect trap game for a team. You can an underestimated opponent in the West Coast, but Blackburn on that team, Christy Lamb having an all-Australian season. I'm going to put my hand up. She should be an all-Australian. She's been absolutely fantastic. Christy Lamb, let's go. I'm going to tip the Doggies in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Doggies in this one. It's, they did look very tired in their last match, and I'm certain that Nathan Burke would have given them very light, if anything, session on the field this week. And, they put their feet up for, about 7 hours on a plane that they travel to get across there. So, rest up, Doggies, and come out firing. And, yeah, it's going to be tough for West Coast at home, but, yeah, I think the Bulldogs have got this one.
All right, another one. Unfortunately, the website still has not updated. I believe this game is not going to be played in Maroochydore because last time I saw Maroochydore, somebody was swimming laps along the boundary line. So Brisbane Lions v North Melbourne. I think this game has been moved to Victoria because I think both Brisbane Lions teams have been moved out of Brisbane. So a very interesting little twist here. I'm going to tip Brizzy because I think Brisbane Lions speed and ability on most of these lines, I think is going to surprise North a little bit. I don't know if North has that pace to go with Brizzy, but this is another absolutely cracking game. I cannot wait for this one. Should be fantastic. Sad it's not a Maroochydore, but I mean, unfortunately, you can't play in 2 feet of water.
True, and here goes the argument about all these games being played in the heat and players not coping and all of that. But we've had some absolute stinking wet games, thunderstorms, lightning. And so, yes, so here's a consequence of the flooding up north. So I think at the moment, Victoria may be the only state with sunshine. So bring on the games. So yeah, I don't think the travel will affect Brisbane at all. I think they're just quality. They're playing just some outstanding football, and off the back of last week, which is off the back of what looked like a training run against the Suns as well. I think they're just going to keep playing that form, and they're going to be very hard to score against. And I think they're going to be, I don't think North are going to have the edge to actually beat them. So yeah, Lions all the way with this one.
Yeah, I got the Lions in this one. Going to be tough. We jump over to South Australia and Norwood Oval, and unfortunately, Adelaide gets to greet the Pies. Now, unfortunately, now down Britt Benici, and unfortunately, even with no Aaron Phillips, I have a hard time seeing the Pies come out and getting this one. They'll put up a mighty crack. I think this should be a good one, but I have the Crows, and I think the Crows win this one by a nice margin.
Yeah, I think they do. Look, I'm hoping, I don't know if it'll happen, but I'm hoping Steve may drop in Liv Ma. She's a young player who could actually do some damage to that midfield. And I think that's what Collingwood need, is just something that's less predictable, but really tough. And, and I've seen her at training, she's sat Bree Davies on her butt. So, maybe she is the X factor that could come into that midfield and just really nullify the impact that Hatchard and Marinoff have, and, and then, help the Pies get the ball. And once they spread, the Irish Stars, the speed they've got on the outside midfield, that's what Collingwood need, is just to get the ball outside and run it. And it's going to be a really tough game against Adelaide. So Steve is going to have to absolutely think outside the box. And he is from South Australia, so he knows and has no doubt coached a bunch of those players. So from what I know about him, he will think outside the box, and he'll come up with something to give it a red hot go against them, that's for sure. But I think Adelaide at home, I think, it's going to be a close game, and I think they're going to have the edge.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. And now to probably a game that you could almost flip a coin and you'd have just as good a shot of calling this one. Icon Park as Carlton take on the Gold Coast Suns. Last game of the round. Coach, who do you fancy in this one?
Well, that split personality that Carlton have, they got their win last week. Is this when they come home again and they don't get the win? They've really disappointed fans at home, and which is a shame. It's a nice stadium. They've got some really dedicated fans. I live with 2 of them, so I know how dedicated their fans are. But I kind of get the feeling that Suns will get up, and I think after last week and losing the 4 points to St Kilda, I think that's going to put a little bit more fire in the belly. And I don't know if Carlton are going to be ready for that, and I don't know how Carlton would cope with that. But I'm going to give the edge to Suns. I reckon they, Darcy has got their 50 goals, can sit back, and I think the Suns are going to come out and take the 4 points.
I'm 100% with you. I think honestly, if I'm Carlton, I'm shaking in my boots that Perko's going to come out and just absolutely be red hot. Like, I am be so worried about her coming out, because after kind of a disappointing end to that game and everything like that. I think she's going to be just absolutely in fuego in this one. I love Charlie Rowbottom in the middle. I like everything that this Suns team has been playing with. I've really enjoyed watching the Suns team play this entire season. I think they've been just an absolutely cracking team to watch. I'm hoping that they stay together. I really, really do hope this team stays together because they could be quite good in these next couple of seasons. So I'm going to tip the Suns in this one. And in what some might tip is a tiny bit of an upset, but I'm going to go the Suns in this one as well. Well, Coach, we've gotten through it. We've gotten through all of our technical difficulties. The internet sometimes can be such a pain in the rear. So we will end this episode. Thank you again so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure talking with you. I told this to Emma Phillips when I talked to her earlier. I love the Coat Hanger podcast. I think it's a great chat that you ladies have. Please, again, as I said with Emma, please relay my thanks to Searing Fee back on the podcast. It's so great to hear her back. I'm so happy that she's doing better. Please tell her hello from me, and hopefully we can get her on a podcast here very, very soon. I'm so glad that she's back. So thank you very much again.
Yeah, we did get her back, but she is going to be away now for a while. She actually starts chemo next week, so
Okay.
So it was good to have her voice back, and I think she liked being able to come in as the guest rather than the host and wrangle us around a bit. But look, Pete has done an amazing job, and and to wrangle 4 women like he does, and keep us on our toes for our time frame that we work to sometimes. Because when we record it for our live show, it's got to be done in 28 minutes. Like, it's specific, and us women, we love to chat more, and when it's about football, we love to chat even more. So Pete's done a phenomenal job, and and I think probably we need to get you into the show one time. Why not mix up the accents? They pay out on me, so let's bring some more flavor to the show, Donnie.
I told her, I said, you guys let me know what time. I'll see if I can figure it out. I'm more than willing to. You gotta let me know. In fact, funny stat, I don't know if Emma told you this. I actually worked a game with Pete in 2019 when he came up to USAFL Nationals. I was his color commentary for a game between Portland and Minnesota. And him and I back and forth. So I know Pete quite well. He's absolutely fantastic guy. I loved his call, and he made it so easy and so comfortable for me to call the game with him. So I love Peter. He's absolutely awesome. Last time I heard talking with him, he should be up for USAFL Nationals this year. So I'm hoping I can get out there so we can call another game again, because it was absolutely fantastic, an incredible human being. Like I said, let him know if you guys need me at all. Let me know. I'm more than willing to hop on because I love the podcast.
Oh, absolutely. And yes, he is. He's probably already packed his bags to come over in October, if I know Pete. So he's looking forward to that a lot.
I'll put the bug in your ear, and all the ladies in Coat Hanger. It's in California this year, so it isn't too far, and it's in the LA area. So, and it is a great opportunity to meet a bunch of Americans that love the game of footy. And it's a fantastic 2 days worth of football with 5 fields, 2 women's divisions, 4 men's divisions. Absolutely cracking. I know Mason Cox usually tries to get over since his brothers play. Aaron Phillips was in the 2019 one, because I know she has connections with Austin. So it is incredible. So I say, anybody that listens to this, if you're an Aussie, if you are open that first weekend in October and can get to LA, Ontario, California is a suburb. You will enjoy footy in the US with a bunch of Americans playing footy and some expats playing football over here on US soil. It is a fantastic event.
Sounds like it. I might have to have a chat with my travel partner.
That'll be absolutely awesome. Well, again, Coach, have a wonderful day over there and enjoy the sun in summer. We're still at the end of winter up here in the States. And we're getting ready closer and closer to our season over here with the USAFL. We're getting super excited that our fields are thawing to the point here in Iowa. We can get my team, the Des Moines Roosters, up and going. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for our episode today. We fought through technical difficulties. We will see you again next week. We're getting closer and closer to finals. Keep an eye out. Finals coming up. We cannot wait. and have a wonderful week. And we will see you again next week.